Hi, I'm Vince with MultiversityComics.com. I'm here with Antony Johnston to talk about Umbral. We're outside the Image panel that they just held. How did that go for you?
It was pretty good, actually. It was more of a chat than anything, really. Everybody just kind of talking amongst themselves and talking about creativity and where do you get your ideas from. But it was good. It was fun. Yeah.
So we're talking about Umbral today, and we recently did an interview on Multiversity Comics that you can check out. But I thought maybe we'd get a little bit deeper. Could you maybe talk about the characters? Now, Umbral's a dark fantasy, so what sorts of characters are we going to be following?
Well, our two main characters are Rascal and Delone. Rascal is a young thief she's an orphan. She was raised by smugglers and was kind of mentored by the Master of the Thieves Guild in this fantasy world that we've built. And she is one of the premier thieves in the city, even though she's still very young. But she has an attitude. She has a real bad, cynical attitude, swears like a sailor, doesn't really take crap from anyone. And is, very willing to stand on her own 2 feet. And she also has a very kind of dark sense of humor, and she's going to need that to get through, some trying times ahead. And then our other main character is Delone, who's kind of the complete opposite. He's an adult, he's educated, he's erudite, he's physically quite capable, but he's also a hobo, a destitute, living in the gutters in this fantasy city. How did a man like that come into circumstances like this? Well, we don't know, and that's, obviously we'll find that out through the course of the series. And they make for a strange contrast and strange bedfellows. But, there is more to both of these characters than meets the eye, and they'll find that out about each other as the series goes on. So it's hopefully a good, strong pairing.
And is there potential for comedy there, or is it going to be mostly conflict? What sort of relationship are we going to see from those two early on?
It's a little from column A, a little from column B. I mean, they don't really get on. They're kind of forced together by circumstance. But there is also a bit of humor there, a bit of, comedy of errors and misunderstandings and stuff. Just because, as I say, Rascal was literally raised on the street, and we quickly realised that Delone was not. He's a very educated man. And so there's, a lot of misunderstanding goes on there. A bit of a generation gap as well. Some comedy comes from that. So it's kind of both. There is tension, there is conflict. They do argue and have differences of opinion, but they do also, throw a bit of humour in there as well.
Fantastic. So Umbral's been described as a dark fantasy. Could you talk a little bit about some of the themes that involve the darkness, and maybe let us know if there's any potential for some hope with that too?
Oh, there's always hope. There's always hope. Yeah. I mean, even in my other book, Wasteland, there's a glimmer of hope. Not much, but there's a glimmer. The themes, if you like, of Umbral are, it is a very paranoid story. It is a dark fantasy. There are elements of horror. But if there's a single theme, it's about trust and figuring out who you can trust and finding your family, to use that's a cliche, but that is a valid theme. And it is a lot about Rascal learning how to sort of negotiate a world full of people that she literally doesn't know who she can trust or not. And there are also themes of mythology and legends and storytelling, which are in most of my work. I'm kind of obsessed with those things. So, sorry, I'm being distracted by some very, very loud sirens and whooping in the background. I'm sorry.
Spider-Man must be walking through.
I do apologise. There's lots of themes about finding yourself and finding your place in the world. But, those are themes, but mainly it is just an adventure story, and hopefully an exciting one with lots of cliffhangers and some good characters that'll keep people interested. I'm not trying to preach.
Sure. So I think a nice dark fantasy adventure story is a niche in comics that not a whole lot of books fill. Could you talk about maybe your approach to filling that niche, and maybe how doing a creator-owned book gives you the freedom to go places that you wouldn't necessarily be able to otherwise?
Well, creator-owned books give you the complete freedom. That's why I do so many of them, because, that's the sort of thing I love to do. Our approach to dark fantasy and kind of filling this niche is basically we wanted to create a world where we could do just about anything. We didn't. Well, I mean, Chris and I both love fantasy stories, and I mean, hell, I write video games. I grew up playing role-playing games. You know, I love what you might think called traditional fantasy worlds, Tolkien and D&D and stuff like that. But to be honest, I kind of feel like there are a lot of people who could do that sort of thing better than me. So what we wanted to do was focus on our strengths, and with me and Chris, that's kind of. Well, with me, it's building elaborate worlds, and with Chris, it's doing really weird, grotesque stuff that you don't find in those traditional fantasy worlds. So we wanted to make something where there were no rules, in the sense that people wouldn't go in and think, oh yeah, I know what this kind of world's like, you know, because for us, that's a little dull. We wanted to make something where people pretty much by halfway through the first issue of the story will go, oh, okay, this is not the fantasy sort world that I was expecting. This is not anything I've seen before. So that we can do whatever we want, you know. And I'm not saying the world doesn't have any rules. It does. I'm just, you know, they're not the rules that you might expect or be used to, and I'm certainly not going to tell you what they are. But there's a lot more scope for us to kind of do things that are a bit out there and real fantastical stuff, rather than just guys with pointy ears.
Fantastic. Well, I think I speak for the rest of the staff when I say we're very excited about Umbral. When can we expect that to hit shops?
Issue 1 goes on sale November 13th, and then it's monthly from there on out.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, Anthony.
My pleasure.